What's up, guys? Me here today. It's been a long time since I've done a video. I pretty much stopped doing videos because nobody really watches them. Anyways, something I got to get off my chest that's been bugging me for a long time um, is this Battlefield 2042 nonsense that's been going on. We know, without going too deep into it, we know that the game released not complete. We know that basic features that should have been there weren't there. It was pretty much an alpha game at launch, which would have been fine if it was free. But since, people had to pay for it and they thought it was a full game and was ready to go, people are pissed. And understandably so. However, there are a few things that the community seems to not really realize here. And no, I'm not defending that this game shouldn't be talked about in a negative light, because it absolutely should. But as you see here, there's a Battlefield 1 poster right behind my head, which to me, my opinion, it was my favorite Battlefield of all time. But anyways, there's some things here that nobody ever seems to really talk about with Battlefield 2042. They talk about, well, it should have had an extra year. Well, the funny thing is it did have an extra year. It was supposed to have already been out. It was supposed to come out in 2020, but they pushed it back a year. So keep that part in mind. So this game was pushed back a year, and it still came out the way it came out. Well, that's interesting. There were 3 development teams that worked on this game. There's your typical DICE. There was Ripple Effect Studios, which used to be known as DICE LA, which before that was known as Danger Close Games, which did the Medal of Honor and things like that. That's head up by Vince Zampella. I'll get back to him in a moment because he's going to be key here in my discussion. And then they had, Cetrion Games? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sure I'm not. But the franchise studio that does the Need for Speed games. They halted Need for Speed for another year so they could work on Battlefield to make sure that Battlefield came out proper, because Battlefield 5, which a lot of people seem to forget now, but Battlefield 5 was a glorified mess at launch. Not as bad as 2042 by any means, but Battlefield 5 was quite disappointing at launch, especially compared to Battlefield 1 at launch. But anyways, so you had three large development teams. I'm sure there are even other people that we don't know about that worked on the game. 3 large development teams, an extra year, and the game still wasn't completed. That kind of annoys me. But what's getting more annoying is the people that are attacking the developers. Do you really think that, Joe Smith, who winds up going to work every day, has any kind of control on how the game comes out whatsoever? Even if he was the lead of that studio, do you think he has any choice? No. It's never the developer's fault. It's the publisher's fault. The publishers put so much onto these people, which would be fine in a regular kind of environment. Your boss should be putting pressure on you to make sure you're getting your job done. That's okay. The part where it isn't okay is all of this crap that is expected in such a short period of time. Video games nowadays, they're not made 8-bit. They're not games that, you could fit onto your pinky nail. These are big budget games that in some cases, many cases, can wind up costing more than the average film to produce. It costs a lot of money. It takes hundreds, if not thousands of people, usually, to make a big full-fledged AAA game like a Call of Duty, like a Battlefield. It's not done with, a couple dozen people. It's done with hundreds or thousands of people with hundreds of millions of dollars. And I get, on a publisher standpoint, you got timelines and you got to stay within those timelines. But you can't expect a game like Battlefield to come out every other year and to be a blockbuster, amazing game. Call of Duty learned that the hard way. They have 3 development teams, and each one of them comes out with a quote-unquote new Call of Duty. You could argue that and say that a lot of it is cut and paste and painted over. And anyways, but they come out with a new Call of Duty game every 3 years, and even that still has problems. Games like Call of Duty or Battlefield, they should have at least 3 development teams working on it, if not 4. And then you're going to have one, you could have one that'll come out every year at that point, which is fine because they've had a lot of time to work on it. You have one studio work on one game, you have another studio work on another, and you have another studio working on another. So, for example, if you had, well, let's use Call of Duty. You had Modern Warfare, you had Black Ops Cold War, and now you have Vanguard. Each one of them has had time to work on it. Now, were they all good at launch? No. But that's just kind of the Call of Duty thing these days. But at least these games are having longer to bake in the oven, more or less, before they come out. Look at Halo. Halo Infinite wound up needing to take an extra year, and even though it wasn't perfect at launch, and no game I don't think ever will be perfect at launch anymore, it was much better at launch than 2042 is by a mile. So the problem here is don't get really upset at the developers, get upset at the publishers. Yell at EA, yell at Activision, yell at those people that are pushing these games out without them being complete. But then also yell at yourself. Who's making you buy the game? Guess what? I pre-ordered 2042 the day it became available digitally. And then as soon as I found out that they were delaying it by another couple of weeks like they did with Battlefield 5, I canceled my pre-order. Because I knew that the game wouldn't have been ready. If they had an extra year and an extra development team and, in my opinion, the god himself, Vince Zampella, working on it, and they still had to delay it, and they only delayed it by 2 weeks, we all knew that nothing can happen in 2 weeks. Nothing in the gaming world can be fixed that well in 2 weeks. Not going to happen. Especially a game of that size. Not going to happen. It should have been delayed at least another 6 months. But I digress. So now we have Vince Zampella, who's in charge of DICE, which I think is going to be a great move, but I don't think you're going to fix 2042. I think the game is done. It's almost going to be at the point is cut your losses and move on, but I know that's not going to happen because you've already made money on it. You're now just going to have to start burning through money, and if you're lucky, you'll break even on the game, is what I think should be done, and that game should be rebuilt from the ground up. That just needs to be what'll happen. I think the only shot that Battlefield has now after their horrendousness that was Battlefield 5 and even the worse horrendousness of 2042, I think the only thing you can do now is have Vince Zampella sit down and say that, hey, you know what? There was mess ups. There was mistakes. We didn't get it right. We didn't have enough time on it. Yada, yada, yada. Corporate spiel, corporate spiel, corporate spiel. We all know it's really EA's fault, but let's just, bury the developers because that's what needs to happen because that'll be the only thing that really matters at the end of the day. And promise that, we'll make a better Battlefield game the next go around. And if the next Battlefield game takes 3 years or 4 years to come out, then great, it takes 3 years or 4 years to come out. 99.99% of people would rather wait for another game to come out than go with what we got with 2042. If a game was going to come out and we're told, hey, it needs to be delayed 6 months, 9 months, a year, okay, cool, it needs to be delayed. It means the game should be better at launch. Battlefield took an extra year off, had a third major development team, and it still came out like this. Again, the people at fault aren't the developers. It's the publishers and it's the consumer themselves who winds up not paying attention to the business whatsoever. But guys, please don't be, wanting to tar and feather developers. It's not their fault. They're working as hard as they can. They're working more hours than we are in many cases. They're trying their best, but they're being put against the wall by people that are bigger than them, basically, like a bully, and being told, hey, you need to do this at this time, and it's going to come out, whether it's great or not, we don't care. And guess who gets all the flack for it? The developers. Anyways, this has just been on my chest for a while, and I had to get it out. And like I said, most people aren't even talking about the third major development team or the extra year they took off, but it's what happened. Anyways, I don't care if this video gets a lot of views or not. I just wanted to post my thoughts. Anyways, thanks, guys.